Patrick, how are you feeling today?
Hey, Daniel. Feeling great. It feels good to be back in the deep south. Haven't been here in a while. And it makes for a change from at least where I'm from and where I live and work.
All right. What are you appreciating the most out of the Deep South?
I like the fact that there's a couple of trees, first and foremost.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate the lack of humming noise that you find, because I live in Msida, right? And so, the couple of trees that were there were mercilessly chopped off. And so I appreciate the more open spaces that you find here in these, quaint Maltese villages.
Yeah. One thing that you pointed out when we met is the silence and the sort of the hum and the village, and I kept on thinking about that and the importance to reduce the noise in our brains and to appreciate the silence and to find ourselves within that silence as well.
Yeah, in fact, it's true. In fact, they say that the best ideas happen when you're either bored or when you're sitting quietly and idle, right? That's actually the inspiration that got me to create this TikTok channel, which became, this social media platform, happened very innocuously. When I was on holiday doing nothing, just lying idle. So I can see what you're saying there.
Boredom is there's a saying about that, I believe, right? And boredom is not sure about it.
Yeah, there's various actually sayings. There's one which is pretty bad. I remember systems of knowledge in sixth form. Saint Benedict, idleness is the enemy of the soul. Remember that?
Not really.
But that's the opposite end. I think idleness is far underrated, and we don't get enough of it. At least I don't. I'm always on the go. My mind is always racing with new ideas, new concepts, new jobs, work, projects. And I'm pretty sure you're quite similar to me in that respect.
Recently, I was giving a workshop actually on productivity, and similar to silence and boredom, we highlighted and it was actually one of the lessons that was highlighted on this workshop is that the resting time. In productivity, rest is very important as well because it has a place to help us recharge. Very much like sleep, the importance of sleep. I can't say that I have a healthy sleeping pattern myself, so I'm currently working on that. However, sleep is important for us to recover and to bounce back to our more productive hours, I would say.
Exactly, 100%. I try to get my hours in. I'm more of an early bird, so I would, as you rightly point out, I would personally sometimes wake up at 4 a.m. with an idea, bang like that, and that's me for the day. But I tend to have my best sort of productive window from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. before I go, before my dog tugs me for a daily walk.
I know I'm not an early bird for sure. I'm a night owl, and to me, what you mentioned, I experience it later on during the day. So it depends. Sometimes it's still in the morning, but sometimes even in the evening as well. My most productive, the most productive time is between 8 and 11 to me.
PM.
PM.
I think that's the more common approach, actually, because it's very rare I find people like me. Every time I mention it, I get like these weird looks. Like, why?
My perception is totally opposite then.
You think people are early birds?
Yes. At least that's my point of view. So
probably society has conditioned us probably to have this morning spurt. Maybe not as early as me, but our jobs are, at least the day jobs, are typically 8 to 5, 9 to 5.
That's true.
So that probably is why you think that, I would assume.
TikTok, Patrick, what do you do on TikTok?
What do I do on TikTok? That's a good question. yeah, my TikTok channel started out very, very randomly because I always felt that there was this disconnect
Okay.
in, let's say, in society, where you would find two opposite ends in social media, right? You'd get, let's say, LinkedIn, you'd find people's polished version of themselves, you'd find companies, brands stating this is your dream job, go for it, you know, and all this polished marketing, let's say, slogans, let's call it that. And then you get the other end of the spectrum, right? Today's youth are very into TikTok, and I fear that there is a lot of misinformation there. There are people promoting plenty of get-rich-quick schemes. There is a lot of material that is American, like I don't care about 401ks or IRAs or this sort of thing.
What are those? Just for the listeners who don't know, what are those?
Sure. So in terms of financial awareness, financial knowledge, I knew that there was a lacuna in multi-society, 100%, for sure. But then I also noticed that a lot of content that was produced was catered to an American audience, or if anything, an English or a British audience, and there was no content that was useful in a financial nature to a Maltese audience. And so I wanted to spread some of my 15 years of experience working in finance, my 2 master's degrees and CFA, to try and blend something into a unique offering that people can relate to in a practical way rather than using, you know, jargon or bombastic statements. Listen, this is what you need to do. This is probably what you had in your mind for the past 10 years to ask, and you never really asked. How to invest, how to save, why it's important to invest, why it's important to save. And I try and keep it, at least on my TikToks, I try to keep it in very short, 1-minute spurts. But yes, my offering is not just restricted to TikTok, but I've also started a YouTube channel with more longer form content that then informs people, let's say in a more serious, more nuanced way, how to go about things.
Right. And what is your target audience then?
Well, my target audience is anyone who is looking to invest, looking to save, looking to improve their financial future. So I personally, I don't like to pigeonhole myself into one category, but if I were to describe myself, it would be firstly as a financial advisor who advises businesses and individuals on their futures. So on their let's say, plans for the future. That's one. The second, let's say, role would be teacher, lecturer. I always enjoyed. Okay. For some reason, it lights me up being able to, you know, explain concepts to people, teach. I found it was almost therapeutic for me, because I found teaching is something that comes easy to me, or easier than my day job, which was, you know, looking at the screen for 10 hours on end, meeting clients, and then starting my day at 5, you know, 5 p.m., not a.m. Yeah. and so that's like what I do. That's probably my second label, I would say. And I would say I'm an entrepreneur, thirdly, right? In the sense, not in the grand sense of the word, but in the sense that I wake up every day thinking, okay, how am I going to feed myself today? Yeah. What's going to happen? Like, what next? Yeah. You know? And the fourth one is I'm an aspiring creatorpreneur, right? If that's even a word. So in my mind, in my eyes, a creatorpreneur is someone who wants to make a difference to society by creating content, in my case of a financial nature, and helping make a difference in that way.
Yeah, I think it's the concept here in Malta is a bit, it's in its embryo stage, I would say. I don't think that it's something that is very popular here in Malta yet.
No.
Having said so, from at least the people I follow from abroad, if you say that you're a TikToker, you're a YouTuber, there's still some stigma or taboo allocated to it as well. So it's the grand part of society does not seem to recognize this sort of job, because ultimately it's a way of how you can make money, obviously, as a proper full-time job or a way of earning.
Yeah. If you think, for those out there who are wanting to go into this endeavor, to use your pun exactly, I can assure you it is definitely not a get rich quick scheme. And
yes, for sure.
I am in the business of finance and investing. I can assure you it takes a lot of time. It takes you yourself have your own YouTube videos, and
it's quite hard actually.
It's very hard, and it's all for free.
Yeah.
You know, at least until you start gaining significant traction, and you have to. And it is a niche area. For example, finance is not a mainstream.
Yes.
You know, I'm getting my dog and he's doing all these tricks every day. You know, it's literally financial knowledge. It's not for everyone, right?
It's kind of the boring subject, you know. So,
exactly. But that is a perception that I want to change, because society, and in my view, our educational system has molded us into thinking that money is wrong, money is boring, and not appreciating either the candid conversations about money or even the beauty of saving, investing, finance, and making it entertaining, plus also learning at an early age what a difference, and this is the key word here, compounding makes in all aspects in life, not just in finance. Compounding is sacred, the compounding effect. So,
what's the compounding effect to you, or how you can synthesize it?
Okay, that's a great question, because I'll come at it from two angles. So the first angle is the human mind isn't capable of thinking of things in a convex or a concave, in an exponential manner, let's call it that. The human mind thinks of things linearly. So compounding is literally a way of, in finance, saving very small amounts of money over a very long-term horizon, starting with, let's say, €50, that could, over decades, grow into, I'm inventing, €1 million through very small, increments. And in life, the compounding effect in my mind is, and there's a very good book called Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've read it.
I didn't read it, but I know about it.
Okay, it's a great book about compounding in life rather than and in your career. So if you make a 1% improvement in your whatever, your subject, your topic, your job, every single day, that effect accumulates and becomes something bigger than yourself.
Yes, that's true. And you reminded me of something that there was an interview with Mr. Beast. You mentioned, obviously, you're using numbers as your language. Mr. Beast comes from a different point of view. So let's say you're making YouTube videos, right? You change or improve something with every video you put out there. By time, from the first video to the 100th video, you can then see your improvement, the improvement that you've made across the months, the years. Sorry, that doesn't happen, but there is the compounding effect, that small changes every time that helps you improve, helps you grow with whatever you're doing.
Yeah, I really like that you mentioned this example, because Mr. Beast, incidentally, also makes a very good analogy about the group effect also. So let's say you and me, we are both in this industry, right? If I myself were a lone ranger going at it on my own, right, and making mistakes and improving them, I would make, let's say, X improvement. But if we were, both of us, you and I, we're sitting in the same room, and every time somebody learns something, right, they share it to the group, then imagine what improvement, what even more compounding you can make by sharing knowledge as a group as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I like those analogies because the second one, the one that I mentioned, also relates to, let's say, gatekeeping of information, right? I do what I do for free. I do it because I want to give back to society, and I feel that people need to listen to what I say, and it would add value to them. It would probably be in my interest, at least I would perceive it to be in my interest to gatekeep that information for myself.
Yeah.
But I know that I would be worse off, right? Because I wouldn't get that knowledge and that idea sharing from everyone else.
Yeah.
So I feel that this analogy is really good, especially in the Maltese community, when as a group, we would mutually benefit each other from sharing more.
That's true. That's true. And that is the thing, that until you grow your YouTube channel, your online presence, you're doing things for free. The greatest, it's not about the money aspect, but it's about time. Because you're dedicating, so the audience is seeing that 15-second video that you're putting out there, but that 15-second video costs you 15 minutes in real life, minimum.
If only.
Minimum.
If you're doing videos in 50 minutes, tell me how you do it.
Minimum, because for me the hardest part are the captions and
the editing.
Luckily, the editing part became easier with the introduction of AI. So, although it's faster, it is time consuming because you have to prepare what you have to say, set up the scene, the scenario. In my case, I shoot the videos either at the guest's place when I'm shooting podcasts, or at my own bedroom where I'm shooting those short videos on my own. So I have to set things up. I don't have the studio ready to go. So you have to set things up. You have to prepare some points so that you can follow. Then you shoot, then you have to export and edit and then schedule, which also takes a lot of time. So that 15 seconds to be from the production state to out there online, there are a lot of not hurdles, but a lot of things that have to go through in order to produce something.
You bet, and especially in I don't know about your sector, but in the financial sector, the opportunity cost of that time is extremely high.
Yeah.
Because instead of shooting videos with my dog, trusty sidekick, and then taking, at least on my long form YouTube, take a couple of days to edit. Instead of doing that, I could be doing a productive job for a fee. Yeah. So the price is high. And also, besides that, let's put everything into context. Then when you get people, like random people in a social setting telling you like they've learned more about economics than they have at school, like throughout your videos, it kind of does. I wouldn't say it makes it all worthwhile, because I also need to feed myself.
For sure.
Makes a difference though, and it spurs you on.
It does.
And we must be doing something, right?
Yeah. That is, you have that verification that you're doing something right.
Yeah.
Well, and you do that. Let's be realistic as well. You do that with the hopes that one day you'll be able to feed yourself out of it as well. So yes, you're giving information for free. You're doing something out of goodwill to a certain extent. But yes, why not? If you're doing a good job and you're paid for doing what you love and what you enjoy doing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. So going back to the compounding effect, if it works in that way and you keep on going, because it's so easy to give up. It's so easy to say, this is too much work. I'm not going to do this anymore. It's very easy. So you have to always, at least in my case, to remind yourself why you are doing this in the first place, why you started. Because results are coming very slowly and sporadically as well. So there could be one very good week and then 3 months of silence. And you have to deal with those 3 months of silence. And that is real. That is real. That is very real. Hopefully, at least, or the goal would be that those periods of silence are less frequent.
Yeah.
But until you see that happening, it might take months or even years.
Agreed. In fact, you mentioned a really important sort of term or words to that effect, like you need to have a purpose. At least my purpose is to ultimately make a difference to people's financial lives. There's a positive and a negative to it. The negative is that I believe that we are facing an existential threat as a society. People talk about climate change, rightly so. People talk about AI, rightly so. But for some reason, nobody talks about this train that's, fast approaching. And this train is the, well, let's call it a pensions time bomb, right? Yeah. We all know, but we don't know, that people like you and I will most likely end up without a pension. And a study made by Gemma a few years ago uncovered that 56% of adults are going to only rely on a state pension in the future. And I don't understand why a conversation isn't had, at least, or discussed, or resources plowed into this grandest of purposes. And the answer to that is very simple. You start from the grassroots, you give resources, you pay educators fairly, and you start raising awareness at that level in a fun way, because it is fun. Compounding is fun. It's cool seeing your numbers, always accumulating and increasing. I mean, whenever I teach university students this, and I show them a compound interest calculator, they're taken aback. Wow, this is cool, And it is. But it's very strange why we don't make it compulsory. Mm-hmm. It has to be a compulsory subject at school, in my view. And that is my purpose, to spread this knowledge, which I've had the benefit to learn the hard way, but I've learned, I paid for it, but I've learned, and share it to the wider audience, I guess it's a similar concept to you, spreading, mental health awareness and the like.
And the place of work, for sure. Patrick, what was, throughout your journey so far online, so to speak, what was the greatest lesson that you've learned about yourself?
This is quite deep.
Have you listened to my podcast?
Yeah, once or twice. You know what? I'm gonna paraphrase my friend's saying. So, firstly, they're going to mock you. Then they're going to admire you. And then they're going to imitate you. So my biggest lesson, at least, I'm lucky enough to have had a short journey here. So I've gained quite a following in a short space of time. I consider myself quite lucky. But along the way, yes, there have been periods where I thought, is this worth it at all? What am I giving up to do this? I'm actually showing my face, being at my most vulnerable, right? Just to further this cause that I'm not even getting paid for at the end of the day. But it lights me up. It gives me a sense of purpose, and I feel that besides the world needing a shake-up, people need to listen to someone who is unbiased, unencumbered by any, let's say, organization or ulterior motive, to tell them the facts the way they are. And I feel that with me, what you see is what you get. So when I am speaking, my videos are very minimal, and the content that I give is literally me talking. So we had a good chat, we met before, and I think you are pretty much the same, because you are the same on this podcast as you are in real life.
Yeah.
And I feel that the greatest lesson that I found, at least so far, is to be true to yourself. Saying it sounds cliche. In a way, authenticity, yes, but I feel that especially in the financial sector, that we are so caught up in this facade, in this professional facade, that we become our own worst enemies, because the younger generation clearly want more authenticity. They don't want people in suits talking, to put it mildly, or lecturing or preaching about concepts which they cannot relate to. They want proper, practical, advice. And my mentor, actually, Karen, she gave me probably one of my biggest lessons back when I was my former employer. Because I was very much like that. I used to take my professional Patrick to work, right? And then at home I'll be my personal Patrick. And she told me, Patrick, no, I know this is how you've been taught. Because society and the firms that I was at taught us this professional distance, professional skepticism, etc., etc. But you are not professional Patrick and personal Patrick. You are one person. You take your troubles to work. Yeah. You take your whole self. So be yourself, voice your concerns, and above all, communicate. Yeah. And it is, I think, through that authentic communication that I try and portray something that really is, not something that I or is a facade of myself, or what I want it to be, or something. I am, or I try to be, myself.
Yes. I'm going to challenge it a bit, Patrick. Was this something that I've stumbled upon thinking very, very recent, so it's quite a raw thought in my mind as well. I agree with what you said. I'm the type of person who is involved in various projects at the same time, so I wear different hats. Even in one day, I have to wear different hats. And I always bring Daniel to what I'm doing, So whether I'm at work, whether I'm doing a podcast, whether I'm shooting a video, I bring Daniel to that. So I don't associate myself with the role that I'm doing at that particular time. So I try to be as authentic as I can. What I found myself in is that I'm taking that into my personal life as well. And it is a double-edged sword in the sense that when you're out with friends, you can't be the Daniel who's doing the podcast. You can't be the Daniel who's coaching people. You are Daniel the friend. And that becomes a little bit blurrier, especially when you're a professional, you're an accountant, for example. So, or I'm in the field of mental health and psychology. People tend to associate you with that. So it's very hard. I have this problem, and you're trying to solve it. You come from a financial point of view. I come from an employment and mental health point of view. So it's very hard to remove that cap, that professional cap, so that you can be the friend, casually meeting up in a human way, meeting up with, being there with friends and family alike. So and that is where I'm challenging that concept at the moment in my personal life, because I firmly believe that authenticity goes a long way and it is important. However, we have to remember to let go sometimes, and that there's a place and time for everything and everywhere.
100%, especially 1000%. When you're self-employed, when you're, let's call this nice word, entrepreneur, right? Yes. Another buzzword. It's your work becomes your identity, and that is dangerous, very dangerous, because I'm guilty of it, because I've been told that I'm very passionate about education, about financial education. I'm very passionate, but that passion can wear you down, and that passion can consume you into spending I mean, 10 p.m., I'm not a night owl, but 10 p.m., I'm still editing videos, you know? Yeah. And I wouldn't wish it on anyone. And it is that reason why I think the creative economy, if you can call it that, needs to address this, because it can be all-encompassing. And if you don't take a step back and be in silence, as you say, and relax a little, you can go into a very dark place. So I'm fully with you. I'm fully with you. What I in turn challenge my own industry and my own profession. So I am an accountant by profession, but I'm more of, I don't like labels, right? And don't want to be constrained by a label. But let's say I'm a financial advisor. I'm not going to give a polished version of myself. You know, this is the way things are over here. These are the pros and cons, you know. This might be your dream job, it might not, for example, you know, but I want to be able to relate to people even on a one-to-one, but especially to communicate. I felt my experience, and you are much more qualified than me to say this, so it's not in my domain, but whenever there was constant and ongoing and frequent communication, I felt safer, and I felt that it was more of a symbiotic. There were more benefits to a relationship when communication was more flowing and ongoing. Mm-hmm. So now there's that movement on quiet quitting, right? Yeah. Whatever that means, but it's a breakdown in communication, I would imagine.
Communication is tricky because for us to communicate effectively, we have to ask, at least from in what I believe in, okay? For us to communicate effectively, we have to know certain aspects about ourselves, where we stand, the way we position us in that particular context and in this situation. So, for example, we're having this chat. At the moment, I'm thinking, okay, what is my position with what Patrick is saying? And that is where I challenge that concept. So I was able to, because I thought that I was able to communicate my thoughts, which are aligned, but at the same time branch out from that concept as well. So effective communication requires a certain level of self-awareness. Now, when there is the absence of or an imbalance of that, we have to be patient with one another. And patience is a virtue as well. So if we miscommunicate, we say something which can say something out of anger, out of not knowing, out of panic. We allow ourselves to explain ourselves in a better way, because sometimes we say things without not thinking through, and we say things that come up to our mind on the flick of a finger, but then we need to expand and explain ourselves. So, and I think it happens no matter how self-aware we are, because in the heat of an argument doesn't mean that a conflict, but a debate, a conversation, we don't have the luxury of time to think things through. So, for example, you ask me a question and I have to respond, very much like we're doing at the moment.
Interesting.
You might, after the podcast, think about something that we've discussed and come up with a different kind of message that you want to rely on, which might be slightly a bit more expanded. So we have to be patient and have to say, listen, here I didn't mean what I've said in this part. What I really meant, because I thought this was this, and this. But sometimes we don't accept the new version of the message. We get stuck on the first version of the message. And that happens in every kind of relationship, even at work, even with our romantic relationships. We need to be patient with ourselves and to let the other person explain to us, and to work together into finding a common ground, into finding a solution.
Yeah. It actually reminds me of a client that I had once, that we we were going to create a spending plan, right? And this is the financial angle now.
Okay.
So this client had some issues
Yeah.
in the fact that she would earn her salary, and the next day or throughout the week, it would be gone. So she would impulse buy and have no more funds to last her the rest of the month. So we first created a plan, right? But the crux of the plan was very simple. Let's try a 3-day rule. Okay? 3-day rule. You receive your salary, you go to a shop, you go to a clothes shop, you go to a shoe shop, she liked shoes. You see something you like, fine. Reserve it if you want. Give it to the sales rep. But save it. Don't buy it. Wait for 3 days. Then when the 3 days pass, think, do I want this? And a surprising thing happened that sometimes she would go and buy this item anyway. But very often, she would either forget about it, or she would actually think consciously, conscious spending, listen, I don't need this. So I'm using words randomly, but she would consciously or intentionally or rationally rationalize the subject and say, okay, I don't need this. And we started celebrating week after week these little wins. Today, I saved 200 euros. Today, this week, I saved 400 euros. Yeah. And that snowballed and that compounded into a meaningful spending plan. And this person came out of this, let's say, behavioral trait, for want of a better word, and started saving. So that reminded me of this little financial example. That it's also communication with oneself that is the issue.
In return, you reminded me of something about fitness and sports. When you're dieting, that impulse, because we're speaking about impulses here.
I love my food.
So I would say me too, but right now I'm on a particular diet. But anyways,
Once you mention the carbonara, then I'll be having tonight.
No, I can't. I am beyond it. I will be eating my chicken and rice. So when you see something, because when you're dieting or training, and mostly it applies to food. So when you're dieting, you see something that you enjoy eating, or you enjoyed eating in a particular quantity, let's say. So let's say pick chocolate, for example. So you're allowed to take 2 bars of chocolate every day. Let's give an example. You would be tempted to take 3 bars of chocolate every day. And you would say, well, come on, 1 bar won't hurt, 1 shoes won't hurt, if I buy this won't hurt my bank. If it's something small, obviously it's not 3 cars, right? So you find yourself in that decision-making situation. And what I discovered, not me, I heard it from somewhere, very much like we were saying, that you ask yourself, all right, let me wait till tomorrow. And if I wanted tomorrow, if I want to take 3 bars of chocolate tomorrow, then I'll take them. Most probably, the next day you won't take them. And if you will, it's planned. And because it's planned, you feel that you are under control. So you take them, you might take them because you've allowed yourself to take them, but you won't fall off the wagon. So in terms of dieting, if you do take those 3 bars of chocolate, because it's planned, because you're under control, you won't fall off the wagon. So you won't binge and lose what you've trying to build upon so far in terms of mental fortitude to keep your impulses under control. And I think that goes to what
very much so. It's actually I'm a big fan of the ikigai concept. I don't know if you've heard about it, Japanese philosophy, that they say, I don't know how they do it, but there's part of this, one of the blue zones. Yeah. Incidentally, I believe 2 out of 5, there are 5 blue zones in the world. I believe 2 of them are in the Mediterranean.
The blue zone. I'm familiar with the concept, but not the blue zones. So.
Sure. The blue zones are, and don't quote me on this, but there are specific areas, random areas in the world where there is an exceptionally high rate of centenarians and people living a long life.
Okay.
Long, and they say happy life.
All right.
And two regions where actually one is in Sardinia, one is in Greece, some Greek island, I'm forgetting the name now, and the other one is in the Japanese island, I'm also forgetting the name, that perfected the Ikigai concept.
Okay.
And this Ikigai concept, one of their tenets is to eat until you're 80% full.
Yes.
I don't know how they do it, but that is what kind of reminded me on what you're saying.
The complete opposite of the Maltese concept of eating. Eat until you're 120% full.
100%. Actually,
So-
it's a problem of ours, and that is why we are, one of the most obese nations in the world.
Yeah, unfortunately so.
Yeah, we love our cars,
Yeah.
and which I try to, as much as possible, walk, use public transport. Thankfully, I live in a central area.
Yeah, for sure.
Which helps. I mean, yesterday I had to go to Valletta.
Yeah.
I arrived in 10 minutes. 10 minutes. And I know I'm gonna get
Yeah.
stick from from my university students, who most of them own a car. And I tell them, to go to Valletta, it takes me 10 minutes. 10 minutes? Really? I've been waiting for a bus and this and that. Yeah, it does. So yesterday, when I had to go to Valletta, I actually took a photo of my watch. Told them, yes, it took me 10 minutes and no parking hassle. No.
Yeah.
I was sitting down, I could read a book, and I could catch up on my videos, my emails, things which I couldn't do, stuck in traffic, go to Valletta. So I think we need a culture change in Malta in so many ways. So many ways, one of them being environmental,
Yes,
the other being financial too.
Yeah.
There is a need, and I think being a niche area, at least my area I consider niche, it's not mainstream. The fact that it's garnered such a following, I think means that people are listening and people want to know this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we try, but there are many things we need to change. But let's start one step at a time. Right?
Yes, I think when we speak about change, we see change is a big word,
Uncomfortable word.
It is very uncomfortable word, and they say, or there are studies that say that people don't like change very much. At the same time, change is a constant, so we change whether we like it or not. So I think that we don't like big changes. We don't like to be shook to the point where we lose sight of what's happening. But small, incremental changes, one step at a time.
They compound.
Yes, in the right direction, they have a compounding effect.
Honestly, one of the most formative experiences of my life was actually a wholesale change in my life, and it wasn't an easy change because I was in a stable job. I was an accountant, doing well. I was in a managerial position, but I knew that I wasn't doing something. I wasn't sort of answering my purpose, let's call it that.
Yeah.
I always wanted to go away from accounting, but use my accounting knowledge as a foundation, right? And one of my dreams was to go out and study abroad. And anyway, cut a long story short, I did it. I went to Madrid, Spain, and for one name, literally, I was next on the list to get a scholarship, and I didn't get a scholarship. So I was counting on a scholarship and didn't get it, one. And two, I was also banking on, failing the scholarship, I was banking on, fine, I'll work part-time while studying. I landed there, and all of a sudden the European debt crisis hits. Youth unemployment, 60%, And that is where I learned how to budget, save, invest. Well, budget and save initially, the hard way. And it was a transformative change in my life. Bear in mind that I didn't speak Spanish either, so I had to learn on the street Spanish. But it was as if, like, prior to that experience, I was seeing life in black and white.
Yeah.
I come back to Malta after a while, financial crisis and so on, and it's like, wow, there's color now, and this is change in its most extreme forms, right? But I had to go through that to really appreciate and grow as a person. But then there's drawbacks to that as well, because sometimes ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
And sometimes wholesale awareness can be acute, for want of a better word. It's like every little thing you want to change, every little thing around you, because you've changed yourself, so you want to impose that change on everyone.
To fit in.
To fit in. Does that make sense?
I think it does, because we want to fit in, so we either change ourselves or we change the world around us to help us fit in. I think this is a very common concept that people are social beings, right? So we enjoy being in a form of a community. We've started off this podcast with the community feeling of the village. We want to be part of something, so although some people like to isolate themselves, they like their own company, which is fine and good and all. I think that for the most part, people want some sort of company, either a small circle of friends or acquaintances. Some of us prefer larger crowds, and that is also fine.
Are you the former or the latter?
Thank you for the question, first of all. It's a mix of both for me. I enjoy my downtime. I enjoy being on my own because I can process my thoughts. But I enjoy the company of others. When I'm in the company of large crowds, I tend to lose myself in a way. So I think my best attributes come forth when I'm in a smaller crowd. But I don't mind large crowds. On the contrary, sometimes I enjoy being in a large crowd because this might sound a little bit weird, but I enjoy losing myself in the crowd and sort of be in that moment. Sometimes I don't have to be. So I'm present, but I don't have to be to play a role in whatever is going on.
It's good to switch off and not be switched on all the time.
But for me, sometimes I want to be in the company of someone or a group of people, but sometimes I want the company of my own self,
Yeah.
About you.
I'm pretty much, I guess if you would add a label to the labels we mentioned, I guess I'd classify myself as an extroverted introvert, which might again sound strange because I'm out there, right, with my videos, which came at a bit of a personal cost, but I enjoy, or I need, at least in the evenings, I need to wind down, I need to be with my dog, to cuddle him, to just chill, and I need to be at one with my own thoughts, at some point of the day. Although people would think I'm, more extroverted, I like a balance of both, but if I had to choose, I would probably choose the company of myself, I'm not saying that in a patronizing way in any way, but I like the quiet and the solitude, with my dog, of course, or in a small group, a one-to-one or a two people or three. I think, I wouldn't say crowds overwhelm me, but if I had to choose, I prefer a more intimate type of, communication, which probably then has the adverse effect of being so intense sometimes that you'd need downtime,
Positive, 100%. If you ask me that question, I think I would prefer to be in the company of someone rather than on my own, as long as the person gives me that alone time from time to time. So if we're stuck in a room, just give me a corner so that I can, for a couple of minutes and every day, or some space where I can formulate my thoughts. But I prefer, if it's the end of the world kind of question, I'd prefer to be in the company of someone, but as long as the person gives me space and time whenever I need to.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm with you there.
So, but yes, if you're with someone, so something which happens to on a day-to-day basis, if you're living with someone, family, romantic partner, whoever, I think finding that space, your own space at home, or even in a time format, it's very healthy.
Yeah.
Because even if we're two individuals living together, we are two individuals living together.
Yes.
There are moments where we become one, and certain decisions that have to be taken in a collective rather than on an individual basis. But at the same time, we can't lose our own identity either.
100%.
We are our own individuals, and we should cherish that too as well.
Yes, I agree. And my job can be a bit solitary very often. So I would, for example, present a workshop to a business client where there'd be 20 people, and then I'd be alone for 2 days.
Yeah.
Well, with my dog. So that can be a bit not overwhelming per se, but it can imbalance you slightly, So sometimes it's good to have these one-to-ones, these check-ins, or this person living with you to keep you company, right? To balance out the big crowds, and you're always presenting, you're being your professional self,
yes.
And then to unwind and being your personal self with someone or a couple of people. So yeah, I guess it's lonely in a different way. My job today is lonely in a different way because I am the first and last line of defense, literally. But when I was in my corporate job, I was in a senior management position, and I had a team of around 8 people.
Okay.
It was lonely in a different way because you are trying to give or be the example, be the figurehead for a team. At the same time, you're trying to handle pressures from above, the side, and below, and there goes your front again, right? So it was lonely in another way, and probably more draining, because now I can, if I want, I wake up at 5 a.m. and I just bite the bullet and do it.
Yes.
So it's being freelance has its own different challenges.
Yeah.
But I enjoy it.
As long as you enjoy it, that's good.
Yeah. I really like teaching and lecturing and giving corporate training, because when I feel people engage, that there's that magic created, right? 1 + 1 = whatever, 5 or 6. As long as they engage, and if they don't engage, then I make sure they engage. Somehow they always engage, at least.
But the message here is that, going back to what you said earlier on, is that whatever career path you choose, or what you're choosing, a type of battle you fight, if we're to make it a little bit more dramatic, no road to success, whatever that means to you, is easy. Either you're doing a 9-to-5 job, and there's nothing wrong with that, otherwise there's no economy, so there's but if you have a freelance spirit, if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, then that's good. But it does come down with own struggles as well. So there's no fairy tale in either path one picks. And I'm conveying this message because I know that we are on social media, and social media is frequented by young people as well, who might be at this stage in their life where they need to make a choice. And sometimes it happens with the choice that you make for your career, but it can happen when you're 15, it can happen when you're 25, it can happen when you're 50.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So I very much similar to you, I work with many youngsters, and my message has become, follow your heart. There is no right or wrong path. You will do what you're meant to do in some way, shape or form. Just follow your heart, do what you enjoy doing, and that will lead you where you need to be. So I have friends who, I want to become a doctor, and they became a doctor. That's fine, from the age of 7. That's good. But not everyone's like that. I am not like that either. So I never I never thought I would be doing podcasts or giving training or working as an HR professional. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah, but you know what? I think we lack educators like you, at least in my field, because I feel we are very much straight-jacketed from a very young age to take the accounting profession, right? Whereas if you take the example of, let's say, the Anglo-Saxon model, which I really like, and we should, in theory, be emulating, but we don't. We choose accounting at 13 and expect students to become accountants, right? They operate under a different model. So they will go to university, they choose the arts, they choose history, they choose geography, they choose debating, which is a subject that is inexistent in Malta.
Unless you get some degree plus or
exact degree plus, yes. Right? They were the extra,
If you're truly interested in learning at some other aspect in university.
Exactly. Whereas abroad, they would take history, they would take arts, they would take geography, and then they would pursue an ACCA qualification, they would pursue a CFA qualification. But by then, they'd formulate their own sort of communication skills, their own awareness, self-awareness, which is, I really like that word you used, and based on that, choose their career path for the next 40 or so years, not at 13. So that, and the fact that being an educator myself, I find students' communication skills are increasingly poor. Unfortunately, writing, debating, sharing, because it's as if we are children and we're playful and we're mindful and we're present, and then something happens, and this tends to happen at school age at some point, and you start being more, taken aback, take a step back, don't question, study, read the book, and this happened to me. Before I came out of my shell, before I had that epiphany, I was very much into the system. I studied, economics. I studied only the capitalist system because that is the only system that was fed to us. I never debated, never had barely a presentation. And if I did present a couple of times at university, never got any feedback. And these are skills that students now are sorely lacking, because leaders, you are the expert in the subject, need to communicate. It's no use having a mathematical background or I don't know, understanding International Accounting Standard 36 footnote 5 unless you can't, debate it. So I don't understand why we do not learn soft skills as an integral part of our syllabus. Especially in our field.
Yep. Well, I couldn't agree more with that. As we're meeting here, I'm very much fond of Scouts, and Scouts focuses on soft skills, and it gives the opportunity to people to harness, sharpen, and explore these kind of skills, and which are transferable skills, because you mentioned debating, goes hand in hand with public speaking, but public speaking, you have to be confident. If you're not confident, you can't do public speaking. You can be insecure about certain things. Yes, of course, we all have our own securities. But where do you cultivate confidence? How do you challenge those insecurities? And you might not overcome them, but learn how to coexist with them. Where do we do this? Neither work nor school, we can't do this in the usual channels. We're not exposed to this kind of school of thought at work or at our academic life.
And yet, on job descriptions, what do you see? Interpersonal skills, communication skills, team player, leadership skills, all of these are integral parts of probably transferable, as you said, to so many fields. And yet we don't teach them, at least in the manner they should be taught, in my view.
As much as I understand, because it can be so subjective. So when you're and all of these kind of soft skills, it can be so subjective that it's very challenging, or we have to really change our education system and the way we pass on education. So the philosophy has to completely change, because in order to reach the individual in the collective, it's definitely challenging. So we have to evolve as well as educators. So
yeah, and educators, as we know, are not the highest paid individuals,
yeah,
you know, and
so
the currency.
what's the incentive?
Exactly. So there is, on one hand, in the grassroots, okay, there is a lack of, I don't like this term, but it is quite fitting, financial literacy.
Yeah.
So the literacy component in financial literacy is deteriorating year after year. I'm seeing it with my own eyes. Maybe social media has led people to write in shorthand or whatever, text language. So the literacy skills are deteriorating.
Yeah.
Financial skills are non-existent. I mean, okay, maybe you can choose accounting. It's not even compulsory, and you'd know what an income statement, balance sheet, or whatever is. But you can literally study up to PhD level and not even know or be exposed to a personal budget or an investment, which I think is a really urgent need to address, to put it mildly. And that is what I am trying to do by sharing this information, you know.
It's true, and it's also true that even if you progress in your academic journey, it doesn't make you a know-it-all, you know. So even if you have a PhD, there are some aspects that you still need to learn about life as well. So what I'm trying to say is that academia is not the only channel to learn about life. It's one aspect out of many others.
On one of my YouTube videos, actually, I mentioned a really good book, which was a revelation for me. Now, 20 years of formal education, this was a game changer for me. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yes, I know the book.
You know the book?
Yeah.
And for some reason, this should be a compulsory textbook in my view. It pits a person who has two dads. One of them is the poor dad, which is his natural dad, and the other one is his rich dad. Ironically, the poor dad was, I believe, a doctor. Okay, whatever, white-collar professional. Let's call him a white-collar professional. Him, and his mentality was always to sort of, let's say, submit to authority. I'm using strong language, but to always be an employee and pay the bills and then save after whatever, and then pay taxes and save after. And then he had a rich dad, right? So the poor dad was very academically accomplished, right? And the rich dad was more business savvy, right? He was not educated from a schooling angle, but he saw things from an entrepreneurial perspective. That, for example, one of his key tenets, which I didn't learn in 20 years, was to invest in assets rather than liabilities. It's not real assets, but what he's saying is that assets are items that will generate you income in return. So, I don't know, you invest in property, okay, for example, and rent it out. That's an asset. A car is a liability. So invest more in assets than liabilities. Try to lower your tax base, legally, of course. I am a qualified accountant in, at least at university or my master's or wherever. I didn't even learn how to prepare a tax return.
Really?
So, exactly, yes, okay. Yes. It was only on the job that we were taught to prepare tax returns. And
okay, that's strange.
Right? It leads me to think, why? You know, why? There are these life skills, and I wouldn't even be doing the word justice by calling them life skills. They are compulsory knowledge that you have to learn.
This is what you'll be doing as an accountant in a way.
Exactly.
Part of it.
That's right.
Of course.
That's right. And apart from accountants, these are skills that everyone should know. Everyone should understand taxes. Everyone should understand the power of compounding and investing and to save for a better future and to have a rich life, you know? So it was a game changer, and I really suggest people read it because there's a lot of knowledge out there, and it doesn't, unfortunately, only come from the confines of formal education.
Yeah. Sometimes we have to learn things on our own as well. However, academia gives you the opportunity or the space for you to, it sort of places you at the doorstep of knowledge. It might not give you all the knowledge in the world or all the knowledge that you require, but it gives you an opportunity to stay curious in a way, not directly, but perhaps, but because you'd have the opportunity to find your learning style if you look inwards. This is something that is not taught either, our learning style, but it exposes you, and sometimes exposure is what you need to get things started. So there might not be spoon feeding. So again, in the entrepreneurial world, you have to figure things out on your own.
You fail forward, you know.
Yes. So, and I think academia gives you that. So it gives you a backup, an academic, a theoretical backup.
It's true.
That will help you lean forward. So, for example, in psychology, we learn various models about the human mind and the human behavior, but people are so complex that we don't fit in a box, we don't fit in a model or a particular framework, but you take this concept from this model, this aspect from this framework, and you combine them together. So those are the frameworks and the models are there as a guiding post rather than as an actual map, So, and I think academia gives you that.
Yeah.
Some tools in your toolkit that can help you navigate, but it's a compass rather than a map.
Yeah, it's true.
In that sense.
In fact, if we compare, let's say, the accounting profession, there's to simplify, there are two ways simplifying. There's the ACCA route, or there's the university/MCAST. Let's also include MCAST. Luckily, I chose the university path for me, because to me, as an advisory professional who didn't necessarily want to specialize in accounting or auditing or wanted to keep my options open, university gave me that exposure that you rightly say of report writing, reading, compulsory reading, exams that, fine, somehow I was always good at school and university, but I always struggled and I always suffered, and I don't think it should be a suffering. I don't think it should be a struggle, but that's a separate argument altogether. Thankfully, university gave me those skills, probably innocuously or without intention, to just wing it and learn how to write reports on my own and research here and do this and do that, which really helped my advisory career. Whereas had I chosen the ACCA route, I would have been, I've gotten work experience while studying, which is great. But would I have known how to write a report? I'd have struggled to do that while working in an accounting job. And so I'd be a very good accountant, be a very good auditor, but then the other skills which are more, let's say, transferable or softer even, I got from university. Yeah. So it wasn't all bad.
For sure.
Au contraire.
For sure.
So yeah, I think financial knowledge is something that we need to work on, and it's really a beautiful subject when studied properly and using different learning methods, I think is what you referred to. Because at the end of the day, when I'm walking my dog, I listen to podcasts, and that is another form of learning.
Yes.
Like this one.
Yeah. So.
And unfortunately, I don't know about you, but we were taught at an age where it was just books.
Yep.
Just books.
Yep.
So thankfully, our writing skills are pretty good.
Yep.
But then, it cost us a bit more. It was more of an effort to get that in our brains.
And luckily, we have podcasts, videos today that we can, e-learning modules, so we can learn at our own pace as well.
I mean, it's I really, it astounds me how today's generation has so much knowledge at its fingertips, and yet, let's stop at that.
The opportunity is there.
Oh my gosh.
You still have to work hard for it, but the opportunity is there.
Probably, maybe you might even have to work harder, but the result of that, what you manage to extract, if you search properly, is endless. The resources they have. I mean, I still remember the Encyclopedia Britannica, and the Tell Me Why, the red ones. I had to go to a library, and it was an amazing feeling going to the library, seeing the books. Like, for example, once, this is a stupid example, but it's another example of the educational system that when I was a kid, I was a 6-year-old, 7-year-old, my cousin, Daniel, he had this like poster, this whatever, cloth, poster made of cloth. And it was Iron Maiden poster, right? Okay. And there was this monster sticking out of a tree or something. Okay. And he would switch on the fan, and this monster would move, and it would scare everyone. And that was me as a 6-year-old, impressionable 6-year-old. At like 12, 13. Once again, I was idle, I was bored. I'm like, let me search this band, let me check out this band. And I started seeing like song titles, Alexander the Great, Mother Russia, Brave New World. And I'm thinking, okay, these are historical figures. Let me read a bit about them. This is literature. Let me read about it. I became a super fan. Okay. And I can say one that I learned more about history, literature, and knowledge through Iron Maiden songs than I ever did at school, right? Okay. Which is big in itself, So my history class, unfortunately, all I remember is we had a black and white book, that's all. Aktar mill-Istorja, I think it was called. That's all. I don't remember anything else, but this literally stumbling upon this band gave me a creative outlet to learn through, without knowing, through audio, and research these historical figures. Whereas then, ironically, when I was 13 or 14, I used to scribble these songs and so on, and I'd get scolded for it. Okay. And they used to say that, Iron Maiden was a satanic band. Yes. Satanic band! These guys taught me all I knew about history, and you're calling it a satanic band. So there are different forms of learning, and unfortunately my creativity was kind of stifled by this, but thankfully it didn't stop me. But I think we should look a bit more, broaden our horizons when it comes to education, and
not to show the power of music as well.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Music has the power to change the world, and the emotion it evokes, to me at least, is unparalleled. And to this day, I still, listen to Iron Maiden and relate to their stories and their historical teachings through their music. So this is, on the surface, the ugliest looking band in the world, for example. But behind these people, there are scholars, true scholars. And so let's try and be a bit more innovative when we teach our children, our future leaders, right? Because we're clearly not speaking the same language. And luckily, I try to relate, when I teach at university, there's silence, but I try and make it a bit lively, to cater to their needs, not to mine, that I want to kind of send a message and this is what you have to study and that's it. It has to be broader than that. For sure. And I think you do the same with your podcast, and your operation is very, very savvy digitally. So I like the way you're portraying your message and sending it out through various forms of media, for example, which is very Gen Z in a way.
First of all, you don't have any options. If you want to compete, you have that's what you have. You have to speak their language. But other than that, you grow as a person as well. So by challenging your own status quo, challenging your own way of doing things usually, and trying to fit in a system, a movement, with your own identity is something that is enriching as well, because ultimately we're trying to go into the TikTok trend, but with our own
slant
to it. So I think that is another way of us exploring ourselves, looking at ourselves from a different standpoint, and yes, that is a whole, and discovering and forming a new part of yourself.
Yeah.
So I think that is an enriching journey. I go into very deep into certain subject, but I think that is essentially that is what it is. But yes, ultimately on the surface level, you speak the language to the audience that you're trying to convey the message to.
Yeah, I think I had to unlearn most of what I learned, honestly. Most of what I learned, well, the little I learned about presentation, and most of what I saw, unfortunately, I had to unlearn for today's generation, especially on TikTok. So I could see that what today's generation want is to speak fast, short, 1 minute, engaging, and boom, that impact, that in your face immediate impact. My YouTube is, okay, longer format. You can, if you want to go into detail, and there's good detail there, you can follow my YouTube channel, subscribe to my YouTube, and see the long form videos. But it's quite clear that the TikTok generation at least wants information fast, or knowledge fast, and if you don't adapt to that, you're gonna die out. Yeah, I see LinkedIn today, and I think it's a great vehicle for exposure, especially business exposure. But once I let's say related to TikTok or the video format, then there was no like a going back. You know what I mean?
It's different realm. It's a total different ball game. I mean, the audience is different, and so your message has to be the way you relay your message. Even though you're saying the same thing, it has to be presented in a totally different way.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're changing what you believe in, but it has to be wrapped. It's like giving a present to someone, right? Their favorite color is red. You buy a red wrapping, but if their favorite color is green, you buy a green wrapping, So it's still the same present, it's still the same thought, but you're wrapping it into a different wrapping so that it appeals more to the person that you're giving it to.
Yeah, and it's not easy to make finance, entertaining, but I think if you're passionate about something, I forget the term you use, do what makes you happy, I believe, is what you said, then there are ways of relating and getting and reaching that audience. Yeah. And if you're passionate about it, then you can make an impact. So this is what I try to do with my content.
It's not about the topic, it's the emotion that you invoke in the people. So very much like music. I'm sure that you've been asked this question, what's your favorite genre of music?
It depends.
It depends. I was expecting that answer because when I was younger, I had a favorite genre.
What was it?
Rock.
Yes, so rocker, man.
My favorite band of all time still is Linkin Park. So
Chester left us. Did you ever watch them?
Unfortunately, no. I had an opportunity to go.
Oh man!
But then it happened, so I've lost my chance. And a friend of mine was assistant. You should come with us. I didn't, unfortunately, and I still regret it. So I actually had mentioned this to someone this week. So, but yeah.
Linkin Park are legends. Limp Bizkit they were the new metal genre. Yes. Limp Bizkit were my go-to, but Linkin Park were a close second. I remember, in the end, actually coming out in the year 2000. I think it was the Napster age.
It was around that time,
right? Hybrid Theory, good band.
When you're younger, you have your repertoire is a little bit not narrower, Those were my idols, But as today, I listen to all types of music. I don't have a genre at the moment because you change as an individual, but it's the emotion that the music invokes. So it's not about the genre anymore. It's about the emotion that the music invokes. Very much like what you're saying. So it's not about the product, but it's the emotion that you invoke. I speak about work, essentially, how we can improve ourselves at the place of work. So very much like finance, quite niche, and it might be boring to some. Or self-help for that matter, because self-help is a tough topic to it's very hard to work on ourselves and from time to time. So I'm in a situation very much like yourself, and I'm trying to make it accessible to other people as well. But I think it's about the passion and the emotion that you evoke in people that matters. And for example, I watch, I'm subscribed to various YouTube channels, and I'm subscribed to one about paleontology.
Interesting.
It's called PBS Science.
Like Ross from Friends.
Yeah. So I know nothing about paleontology. I never studied about geography, was not my subject anymore. But the way the message is portrayed,
Oh, okay.
I enjoy it. So it's not about the topic. So it's totally off my radar as a topic. But the way the message is portrayed, I enjoy watching those kind of videos. So I'm sure everyone is subscribed to a similar channel to that.
It's the power of knowledge today, of education today. In fact, I have one of my YouTube videos which caused quite a stir in a good way. Was is the accounting profession in crisis, right? And one of the sort of messages I tried to give was, I asked the audience, I want you to think of the first thing that comes to mind when you think of the word accountant. And I paused. And people actually thought, oh my God, that was such a powerful pause. Because what comes to mind when you think of the word accountant, you know? A bean counter, someone who's counting pennies, pinching the pennies. And unfortunately, I think we need to do more to change that perception, because first of all, I don't like the word accountant. And secondly, a finance professional and an advisory professional actually, one looks at the future, you know? So when you do business plans, when you do forecasts, you're molding the future. How much more exciting is that, you know? So your analogy of the present, of the gift wrapping, the marketing, if you like, is very, very apt today. So we need to work on our image as accountants, I feel, and as financial educators. So this is how I'm trying to impact people through my own message, simply, okay, but in a way that's accessible. And we need to be a bit more accessible to today's
100%.
generation.
Patrick, thank you for this conversation, for this unbiased conversation. I think we've gave a very authentic view. We spilled the beans.
Yeah, we did.
So thank you for joining me on the show. So thank you for being part of it.
Thanks for having me, mate. Cheers.